Recording is on.
Okay, so today's August 1st, 2021, and we're going to continue our discussion on the Desiderata Extinctionati. It looks like we have a few topics as posted by Gary on Reddit. Yeah. Where would you like to start?
Sure. So we've gone through previously the first point. What was the second one, Mike? Can you see? Because I haven't got it on my screen. Was that about Jeff Hull? Can you just remind me there?
Number 2, proposed introduction of gibberish into DX.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably just a short thing. You want to deal with that? Yeah. No, I was just wondering whether we should just do that as a matter of habit, like in a comment or on a Reddit post. It just posts some complete nonsense, and as Hugh suggested, put a couple of triggering keywords in it, just to create chaos. So people are trying to sort of wriggle their, people who are trying to keep an eye on things who shouldn't be there. I don't know. Has anyone got a suggestion about how to do that, or whether we should bother, or just seemed to be an idea? I mean, Hugh's obviously been through it, but maybe we should revisit it.
I think it's a great idea. So it's anything you can think of. Put number patterns and things. Just any bullshit.
I was just thinking of like an occasional post of some strange video that appears to be not relevant to anything, and then just underneath it, complete nonsense. Just don't waste any time on it. Just type out any old thing.
Yeah. There's a list of keywords. If you Google all the keywords that'll trigger, echelon and stuff like that. I think echelon is one of them. But yeah, if you see, they're quite well known. I think WikiLeaks and stuff maybe have leaked, but they're all the obvious ones. If you say bomb, and you say explosion,
yeah.
Like now already that it's recorded. So it's good to put all of those in some gibberish or like alien script or to some gothic script or any damn thing. Put Greek letters, anything that might look like a code, so that it wastes people's time. But I think anybody should do that. I think the whole population should be encouraged to do that, because if they've done that in East Germany, Yeah, it basically, you can, if the whole population was disobedient enough to frig that way, they would have to stop surveillance, because it just, they would get no meaningful data. It would just be a whole lot of, sidetrack. So yeah, people should do that. In fact, it's done by organized crime and things, the mafia and that. They do it, and military does it routinely. They put spurious messages out with no content, and the reason is because often it doesn't matter what the content is; it's just the rate of traffic. So people know that there's like an invasion coming or military op or something, because the traffic noise goes up. They don't know what the target is or anything, but they know something's coming because of the chatter. So armies and stuff have to put up chatter all the
that
time.
reminds me of that story you told about the ANC watching the compound, I think it was, and they could see when the traffic was increasing, and so they had a warning. I think you said that, and so once the military caught on to that, they got artificially changed it and caught them out.
Yeah, it's at the airbase I was at.
Yeah, that must have been what it was. Yeah.
But where exactly do you post these gibberish code with words, keywords, and confusing messages?
Anything. Just get some bizarre video and give it a title with Greek letters and write "bomb explosion hit target." And you've cost the government about $30 for 2 hours minimum wage.
Okay.
To waste time.
Ask my grandchildren to do homework every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, if it's worth, if the in an organization the size of XR or something, they should be doing shit like that. They should be encouraging the population at large to do shit like that and instructing them to do it, and making it ungovernable. But that's the problem with all these organizations. That's the problem we face, is that they're all liberals and they all support the system. So they think we're still in a liberal democracy. They're deluded enough to think it's a liberal democracy. And so they still support it. So they won't do any of this kind of disobedience against the system. They'll just do disobedience like a tantrum to try and get the government to cede to a demand. But we should be going all out to basically prevent authoritarianism. So all these
shouldn't there at this stage globally already be a crisis of every power throwing out misleading stuff, engaging in psyops with foreign governments and counter psyops and like bullshit information and throwing back at bullshit? Shouldn't they already be in a massive, like incredibly tied up in knots right now?
Yeah, they even have a schedule. In America, they do it once every 4 years. They have kind of like a big kind of marathon, and it's called an election.
Yeah. Well, that's their biggest puppet show. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really starting 2022. It's basically, it's all psyops. It's all active measures, disinformation. Yeah. So that's this is the thing, is we got to step up the game and get people. You see, there's a big danger for the establishment. Everybody knows, like Ceausescu and the television. What did they call it? The television dictatorship. And so all dictators know about now. They know about the power of media to control the population. What hasn't really been explored in a big way, but they're sitting on a powder keg, because there's a lot of potential for that to backfire on them. So worse than like the Arab Spring, you see a meme could go around saying, hey, everybody, all the kids could go on TikTok, and it could become a meme, is just put this bullshit in, like Storm Area 51, that kind of thing. where the government actually said, has to come out and say, please, good citizens, stop this shit where you put all these trigger words in here because it's really fucking up intelligence. And it's like,
and then it will just
really
take off.
Yeah, then your grandma goes, what, you mean they really are checking everything? Yes, grandma, they are. Welcome to the real world.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, but all of these things, will come about as soon as the public gets disaffected. So as the situation gets worse with COVID and stuff like that, and all the other crises, they are liable to lose control if people start getting smart, and they will. I mean, that's what happens. So it's not like the old days where they can clamp down like the Stasi in East Germany. It's the public can be a lot more squirrely than say the GDR was.
Yeah, it's interesting. Increasingly, I find myself having very challenging moments because looking in the mainstream media and that, you're finding that it's really only the right are going in for challenging what's going on. Especially regarding the virus and the authoritarianism, and. Probably like you, I don't know, after a lifetime of being more or less left, to find that you've abandoned ship, and the people that are saying the things that you're most resonating with are all over there on the right. They're just, just yesterday, one of the papers here, there was a thing about challenging what they were calling authoritarian creep over the restrictions, because of the virus. I was trying to get to a further point there. I kind of dropped it, but yeah, no, that's what you said about like the radicalization and getting people to that point, and that seems at this stage to most likely to come out of the right. But they're the ones who are going to whip people up to this point,
Yeah, it's a kind of disturbing landscape because a lot of the stuff coming from the right is Christian, and that's counterproductive in its own way. But why the right is doing much better than the left is because they have the libertarian instincts are finely tuned. What's happened on the left is humanism has led to socialism and communism, and then that's eroded the idea of liberty. So the libertarian left is really, really fringe now. Now it's all, feeling toned, and it's all about individualism, ID politics, and this, and then the socialists saying, should be oriented towards the community, and then communists saying, yeah, it's a step towards communism. But the left has got too into collectivism and kind of abandoned liberty too much. And especially because there's so many tankies around there that are promoting, China and Russia or Soviet Union as a kind of utopia, and then they're crushing liberty. They don't really care about liberty as long as they get to communism. And so, yeah, anarchists, and I don't know why anarchists are supposed to be left-wing according to so many, because anarchists have an instinct of liberty that runs absolutely counter to most of the left.
Yeah, because people always want to put this on a spectrum, so they say, well, if you've got the left here and then over there you've got the right, then where do we put anarchists on this spectrum? But actually they're not even on that line. They're not on there. It actually reminds me a little bit of a conversation I was having with a person I know who is asexual, and we had some very interesting discussions because they wanted recognition, but they were having all this trouble because people wanted to put them on a spectrum of sexuality. But so you were right down some far distant end of it, like where they try to put anarchists. But actually, the matter was that you weren't on this this continuum. You were completely in another place entirely. It wasn't that you were just, you know, turned down to a very low volume. You just weren't even there where this, you know, heterosexual, homosexual, every little gradation of thing there. It wasn't part. You weren't part of that. So it was rather curious. And I think the anarchists are probably in that position where they want some recognition, but they've kind of got to join the continuum to get it. And by staying on the outside, they remain outside of people's comprehension in a way. People can't get their brains around anarchism because they can't position it anywhere.
May I answer to what you say there? Because this week, when Mike said that, I think it's Mike that said that Darren Allen had declined interview with us, and I was very sorry about that because he's a bright mind. So I decided to read a lot of stuff that he's published on his blog, particularly the one on pandemic questions, which is, you know, you can take with a pinch of salt, but his thing on gender. And there's a very anarchist position to it that is extremely interesting.
Oh, okay, right.
Femininity, masculinity, everything is just absolutely very, very clear, and it's very nice to get it from I think a genuine anarchist point of view. I think he is rather genuine, and I then listened to a conversation he had that I will post on Reddit, an interview he gave to a Phoenix radio station on his book, Apocalypia. And same thing, he touches those topics again. So I will post that on Reddit because he's an interesting guy. I wonder if we could not try a different way to get him to talk to us, because I don't know. What did you try, Mike?
Yeah,
I tried, and Mike tried. So I tried twice. I tried two different angles. I said, basically, would you be interested in just having a chat on how we want to implement what you've been saying? And he said, no, thanks. It's like, okay, there's not a lot of place you can go after that. It's like, hey, here's some guys who believe in you and want to implement exactly what you say should be implemented. Yeah, fuck off. It's like, well, that's anarchist. Too anarchist.
Yeah, but I mean, you also took that line in the early days. I remember under your videos where you said, "Don't like this. Don't comment. I'm not interested in what the fuck you've got to say. Just, you know, like I'm not available. This is just here. Watch it if you're going to watch it. That's your problem. You know." And that's,
but I was getting towards basically a build up, and I just didn't want to engage with. I just wasn't at the stage where I was doing people's therapy for them.
Oh, you see, I was. You really had me going, because I thought this guy. When you finally sort of revealed yourself or allowed comments and things, I was just so disappointed. I thought, oh fuck, he sold his soul. Why? I wanted him to remain. To say it and stand by it.
No, I would have, but I kind of had my own collapse, because then I realized, how far gone these people were. I didn't realize before then, I kind of thought that people have a head on their shoulders, at least some do. But it's difficult to know, because the most vocal ones are the stupidest, without a doubt. So I think there's probably 1% responders. I think on Reddit, they say that about 1% of people actually post engage. About 99% are lurkers. And so I think the lurkers, are a lot more, I imagine the lurkers are a lot more savvy than the responders. And the reason is because I get people that respond eventually. So you get people that say, hey, I've been following you since the beginning, just lurking. And then they're infinitely more intelligent than the guys that pitch in all the way along.
I think so. I could try myself, because from a different angle, because he's been very vocal and very in several parts of what he writes about Ivan Illich that I really like, because I very resonate with him, because he's written a lot about medicine. and maybe from the gender question issues that he's done. So if I approached him to say, well, listen, we'd like to discuss this because this is hot on our topics, and would you be interested to contribute? Or I could send you a proof email, and you could tell me if you think that would be, because I think he would.
No, I mean, I think it's a great idea. But I mean, I can't guide you because I kind of hit a brick wall with it.
He might have
so
been
do your best.
You know, you could have had a bad. You could have got him at the wrong time too. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I was really disappointed. So I really would. You know, it's sad. It seems like it happens over and over these days. I felt the same way with Alison. It was like, how can it be that somebody actually gets it and then drops the ball? But that's happened all the way along. You know, that it's happened all the way along since I started this. Was that, you know, you find all these people that say they talk the right talk, and then this dog doesn't hunt. And I'm like, how can you spout all this stuff? And then I answer all the missing pieces. I hear the pieces, and they don't like it. They're like, thanks, I didn't want the puzzle completed, arsehole. And I was like, oh, you were just jabbering them?
Well, I think he doesn't appear much. He doesn't appear much on interviews and YouTube and things like that. He makes a few interviews to the radio and writes. And he said in one of his interviews that what he does is that he goes into the comment parts of a lot of things. And that's where for example, The Guardian, he cannot stand The Guardian, but he actually hammers the articles through comments that are extremely well written. So he might be a lurker, you know. So then you know,
those kind of guys are valuable. You know, there are not that many people that get it. So yeah, I think it would be great if you hammer away.
How much do you think it is an issue regarding the comment I made about Max Wilbert apparently not really getting his brain around the I think it was basically that long missive that you sent to Derek Jensen and Lear as well. You know, and I pointed out that his little quote underneath his email kind of betrayed what he said. You know, but then you realise that it seemed to be a language problem, and I'm wondering with some of the people like Alison perhaps too. It's just that the words that you use just aren't, even though they're describing the same thing that these people might understand, the words are so different that they just can't recognise that you're on the same wavelength as them, because the language just doesn't line up. And I know, as a comment I think I said somewhere, was this happened right at the beginning, a long time ago, when you were first putting the idea around of the ARG on Discord. And I remember when I first read that stuff, I just thought, oh fuck, I just have to bow out of this, because I can't connect with it at any level. I don't know what he's talking about. It was just, but then after a long time of sort of marinating in it and just hanging around, you eventually realise that Lord Hugh was saying something that I already understood, but there's just no way in the world I would have used remotely that language or that kind of words at all. And so there was a complete lack of recognition that you were on the same wavelength, but there was no way to connect up because the language was so different. And I'm just wondering whether this is behind a lot of the people who are not wanting to talk to us, is giving them I don't know, taking
no,
a different dictionary.
I'm sure that's it. No, I'm sure that's it. But can you figure out what language would work?
Oh well, this is the thing. Yeah.
The thing is that it has to be tailored for each bunch. You see, if I listen to DGR or something like that, then while they're talking, I know exactly their language and know exactly how to describe it to them. But I do make too many assumptions. People will completely just get it. But it does take some stew time, that's for sure. But yeah, it's just what's at stake is really how fast the ramp up is. So as it goes, people will get it. I mean, the problem is as soon as you see it, you get it. So it's kind of like in Bright Axiom. It's like, as soon as you see that documentary about in Bright Axiom, you know exactly what it is. But if you try to tell people in words about it, then you just sound like some enthusiast that's just come back from Burning Man and is like, some burner who's like on acid and is like, oh, you got to see this, man, it's so cool. And then like everybody's just turned off. But yeah, it's people will get it when they see it. It's a chicken and egg problem. So you can either invest time in people that you're really sure will be valuable. And then I'm not sure that Alison is in that category. Some people are just not on the same trip. They really have ulterior motives. So I mean, just take for example the recent one, Faulty, is like, I was horrified at that video. I gotta say, I was shocked to the core. But the thing that really shocked me was I had this vision, and they're like, maybe this is all just some homoerotic kind of, fetish that getting off on. I can imagine that having a couple of burly policemen arrest you is kind of a homoerotic turn on. But maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe it's just a martyr complex where you rage at the world and you get some kind of, sexual gratification by having policemen drag you off, and that's all you're about. It's possible. So then you think, how useful are people like that? Is they're not really doing what they say. They might talk till the cows come home about doing stuff for other people and use Good Samaritan, but it's horseshit. It's like, it's like we'll just do the next step and God will show us the next one. It's like, Sun Tzu says you're going to be fucked up in no time, dude. So it's like, there's a very short story. You have to say, look, if you want to be a good Samaritan, wouldn't you do more for the people instead of just, do the homoerotic fetish arrest thing? It's like, a lot of people are in it for ulterior motives. A lot of it's eco-anxiety and, an analgesic for the pain. It's just having sympathy. But I gather not a lot of people actually want to do something for the greater good. And this is the way I see it, is we're all heading for a freaking brick wall. And there's kind of no doubt about it. Everybody say, oh, you can't know the future. Well, you fucking can in this case. And so then I feel, like I just feel compelled to do something to make it a bit better for people. There's so much you can do. If once you've grokked that we're heading for a brick wall, there's just so much that you can do. So I kind of get taken aback when people are just on some, drug trip or getting some ulterior motive for doing it.
Yeah, but if you're doing something because it's the right thing, that you feel that you're doing the right thing, what does it matter? If there are people who are doing it for other motives, it doesn't matter.
Oh no, the motives don't matter, but it means they don't do anything for anybody. So it means it turns into like the Monty Python Life of Brian Suicide Squad. They were like, and you think, great, finally some real soldiers, and then they all go, bah! And you're like, hey, hang on. You're supposed
well, why don't we dive into Faulty now? Because it's warming up there, I think, and because Mike and I talked about it earlier about our reading of this video and interview, prophecy, Christian, whatever, and I'm sure we all have reacted differently to this. So I'd be really interested to hear what everybody has to say.
Well, what did you think?
Can I start, or probably won't stop? I actually, I mean, it depends at what level you want to look at it and through which particular frame or perspective you want to look at it, because depending on that, you get radically different things out of it. I mean, you go all the way from what Hugh has just said. Is he just engaging in some kind of autoerotic continuum which goes nowhere, but it just feeds something within himself? Or for instance,
yeah,
one thing
martyr
that really
complex, martyr complex is big there, right?
well, yeah, that too. And I mean, given that there he revealed that the details of his early religious indoctrination. But one thing that struck me was how he went through just about every profound spiritual truth that there's ever been, but they were all described in terms of Christian. It was all there, but it was just in terms of conventional Christian. And it kind of made me wonder whether he was just preaching to a kind of Christian ethos in America and trying to get that on side, but he didn't really believe in that. In other words, he was Trojaning in his spiritual perspective, and using the American susceptibility to Christianity to get it in. You know, in a certain sense, that the whole thing wasn't as advertised overtly, and he was just playing on that, you know. Yeah, that's basically what I thought.
Yes.
Especially seeing that moderator, one fellow who was reading out the questions, he did say at some point that he was some kind of religious minister or something.
Ex-minister.
So obvious ex-minister or some kind of minister, I can't remember. Yeah, and so you know, you know, by extension, probably quite a few other people who were in that forum with him were similarly inclined. The other thing is too, he's gone. Sorry, I'll shut up for a while.
Oh yeah, so I did think he was playing to the gallery after on Friday, because on Friday then I got on this other call where he just came from his vacation, popped in to do his little thing, and then he was relaxed. He was a completely different character. And so I thought, okay, it was a great relief. He was just playing to the audience. And so I felt a lot better about that. And that is a good
but he's slipping
quality.
in and out of these personas, though. I mean, you know, even the relaxed video might have been just as much of a put on, in a way, you know.
Good. You see, I class that as good. You see, I give him props for that, because you see, what I think in terms of an ARG/cult is you have to play those roles even more so. So very often, I think that everybody thinks Faulty is being outrageous, and I think no, you're just at the cusp of being kind of Andy Kaufman. So the key is not to. I think he tends to tone it down. Everybody says, "Oh, now you're being too outrageous," and his gut is that no, he is doing the right thing, but he tends to pull in his horns a bit when people censor him. And I think somebody, hopefully me, is going to tell him that basically, no, it's the opposite. Go full ball. Go that times 10. So then you see how it turns out is then you openly, you go and talk to Christians and that, and well, you're a Bible thumping Jesus preacher. Hail to the Lord and feel the chaos. And then you do that. And then in the next one, you go to in some ashram, and then you have a towel on, and you say, let's look at it from the point of view of the absolute. And then you basically camp it up, and eventually you see what's happening is there's a cadre of people that get it. They're kind of in the joke. And then that's the Andy Kaufman thing, is the vast majority of people are like freaked out because they take you at face value. And some of the people are enjoying the play, and it's a higher wire act, so it's quite demanding. But I think Faulty can do it in spades. But you see what that does is make a divide between the every man and the people that don't get it, and the people that are in it because of their ego, and then you laugh at them because you know that this is just Andy Kaufman taking the piss, and you don't get it. But you get a growing number of insiders that are in on the joke, and then those are the core that you gradually build up on. It's a very powerful position because then it's satire. So then if the mainstream media or like the Murdoch media and Fox News and stuff goes after you, then people are laughing at them, and they don't know it. You do just what Spencer did with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson got it that he was being made fun of, so he recovered quite well. But you imagine if Spencer pulled that off without Tucker Carlson realizing it, everybody would be fucking killing themselves laughing, and Tucker Carlson would be the laughing stock because if he played it straight, right? So you can get to that situation where the inside crowd is laughing their heads off, and everybody else is taking themselves far too seriously. Now, that's a wicked place to get to. So
I mean, you've encountered that even with what you're doing, where people are just it's happened in some of those stashes in comments that you used to engage in. Well, someone will just take you as read, and just for people like us who are sitting there reading it, we're thinking, oh my God, they're putting all this effort into reacting to you.
You can see me writing it, not for the dude you see, the dude thinks I'm writing responding to him, but they don't get that I'm writing responding to everybody that reads it and looks. They never get it.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to see, what I checked is that that YouTube interview by those ministers, which are all kind of progressive and already sensitized to the climate issue, got 11 views. And that was it. And it was...
Yeah, I was glad about that, actually.
Yeah, it was 6 days ago. Well, no, sorry, 600 views. 11 thumbs up. And it was probably seen more by people on Reddit than people on YouTube. But that fringe of Christians who interviewed him don't seem to be the type of crowd where you'd go fishing for dollars and fishing for support in the Christian world of America. It seems to be a very reduced kind of audience. And I don't see the strategy of his intervention there. I don't understand why he would do that,
Oh, televangelism and stuff is huge. So
yeah,
if you can
but not them. Those guys, I've checked them out. There's Michael Dowd, there's all people who have already talked about the climate, but they're not really the guys who are really involved in the big televangelism and the big things that you see on TV in the States. So maybe he was just, it's a little circle in the environmental, as you said, eco-anxiety people who are trying to support people in terms of collapse. Those guys who interviewed him, they're there. Those are the guys who are trying to soothe people and bring them into the church and into this kind of thing. But they're working on the eco side with them. And I think Faulty's place there he's on the list of activists, and he's going to feed us with his view. I don't see it as a strategy, but he was in great form, in all fairness. Like, he was laughing all the time. It was really funny, and
every now and again he does a little laugh, which really encourages me, because I think, like, at least he's still there. He hasn't lost.
It's a bit like the trickster kind of thing. You wonder sometimes, is he really like? It's interesting, as you said.
But I hope he is playing the fox, right? I hope he is playing the fox. Yeah, I think he is. I think he is, but we'll find out. And this is why I'm going to need some time. I'm going to need some time to really establish all of this. But anyway, yeah. So hopefully, I guess I better send an email tomorrow to try and firm up next steps.
Do you want
anyway on? Oh, sorry.
Do you want to talk about the next steps here in the recorded meeting with everybody, or do we leave
too much? Not too much. I think it'll probably be part of it. But I can tell you that the initiative in October is going ahead. They have enough pledges. So they were a little worried to start with, but 120 was the threshold. So they've got 120 people that pledged to be arrested. And they hope to get it up to 300 by then. But you see, it's the way I see it here. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But like, the way I see it is this is all being done to prove this to the bigger organization that this is the right way to go. This is the right tactic. But it seems very pyrrhic to me because the police crimes bill is in its second reading in the House of Lords, and so it's going to be out. They might rush it through before October, but even if they don't, it's going to be out by next year. So just as you prove that's the right tactic, it'll also be the last time you can do it. Because the way I see it is if you pull a stunt like that, it was explicitly, that whole law was explicitly done against one well-known person. And so it was almost tailor-made for that. So they explicitly say that they will send you down for 10 years for organizing the thing. So even if you don't appear, they're obviously going to go after the organizers. And I tell you, they know there are one or two infiltrators right there, and they know them. So basically, Priti Patel is listening to every fucking word. So basically, it's if the police crimes order isn't rushed through, it will be a non-starter. Just because if you start locking up the organizers, I don't see that tactic will last. But what do you guys think? I mean, I'm so convinced that's the case that.
Yeah, well, this is the trouble with him. He's likely to completely use up, emasculate, just annul the whole thing by just, not being there.
But you see, what I'm going to try and do is to try and convince him, well, if you want to do that tactic, fine. But the thing is not to, keep your powder dry and then don't, build up to it so that when you actually deploy it, you deploy it like, sitting bull against Custer. You have the advantage and you swoop in. So you got to sun chew it and basically be very careful that you wait for the opportunity and then strike and then do it in massive ways. But it has to be on the back burner until then, because otherwise you're educating the state. Whatever you do, whatever innovation you do, as you do the next step, you can just see from the police crimes bills, they keep pari passu with you, and then you don't get anywhere because you're educating each other. So there needs to be some kind of a dance, but it's not that kind of dance. It's kind of like you're revealing all your tactics before you actually deploy.
Exactly. And perhaps when you speak to him, those could be the warning, because once it's gone from the scene, who will be the fox? Who will be the fox king if fault is put away?
Yeah, and so, well, if the whole tactic is to effectively just use Britain as a home base, a safe base, and target America, then it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah. Does the organization have good lawyers in Britain?
I don't think so. I think they all mainly pro bono and stuff. But you see, that's the kind of thing I want to work out, is what actually works in the States. And I there's a couple of conflicting things which I think need to be ironed out here. But there's some cognitive disconnect. For example, at one stage, you get this continual thing saying nothing has worked. The tactics of the last 30 years have not worked. Occupy didn't work. Everybody agrees it's not freaking working. All environmentalists agree it's not freaking working. So even Micah White and David Graeber, when he was alive, they were saying we're defeated. Nothing freaking works. And then we go back and regurgitate the Freedom Riders. I'm saying, like, the Freedom Riders is dead and buried for a number of reasons. This is not the Freedom Riders. So, yeah, I think somehow we've got to wean the left off this really a fetish of wanting to become a freedom rider. And so that's particularly why this Christian thing got to me, because I thought, like, oh my God, it's Martin Luther King, and it's all the, you know, a lot of those guys on the Freedom Riders, they were from churches. So a lot of the solidarity came from congregations. So if that's the game, that game has passed. It's you know, hey, this is a new world. The youth are not positive. That was a different time. They were positive about the future. There was everything to gain. Now the youth are all doomers, and they're online, and they're jaded as all fuck now. The idea that people will say, oh, look at that, all my mates are being arrested, I got to get there. Well, it might work, but it can easily go the same way. You could look like the stupidest fucks known to man. And it tends to go that way. You know, it's like, even though the history is on the side of it working, it was on the side of it working for civil rights. It doesn't make any sense now, because what we're up against is stopping the machine. So, you know, basically, if you gave black people in America civil rights, you were promoting the machine. It was good for the economy. It allowed bankers to get them banked and stuff. And now it's the opposite. Now we need to slow down the economy. Bankers need to shut down. And, yeah. So it's not the right model, and I'm gonna have to convince. You can see I've got a long haul to convince them of that. But the real danger is if they in love with the feeling of what it's like to be arrested and stuff like that, because that is a bit of a drug there, and that's not a good drug.
At one of the meetings, I remember Faulty saying that I'm just repeating myself, that he's pragmatic, that whatever means he will pursue. But it doesn't seem so, because they're stuck on a passe method of the 60s and 70s, 50s.
Well, I feel like I can confidently describe the new way. So maybe they just sticking with the old way because they don't know any different. They're out of ideas. And if they're out of ideas, then we're in luck, because I can sketch out what to do next. Wow.
But he seems to be quite hooked on the idea of the ARG. When we talked to him the last time.
Yeah, but you see that's why I was so upset about this Christian one. See, the Christian one, I got mentioned in that. You see, he said that something about the South African branch of XR. And then he said, you know, the guy was saying that was talking about doing cost-benefit analysis at every turn. It's like, that's me. That's what I told him. He says, no, we mustn't do that. It's all about God. God decides. We're not doing it for cost-benefit. We're not being utilitarian and stuff. It's like, it's up to God. We just throw ourselves forward, and then God will do it. And it's like, well, I'm going to have to say, you know, like, hello, I'm from God. He sent me to tell you the next step.
That's right. God put in our minds the concept of cost benefits, so we should use that tool. It's a gift from God.
No, it is. No kidding, man. It's like, come on. It's like, you know, God said you've got to play it like Sun Tzu, otherwise the forces of evil are going to win. And so that's totally against Sun Tzu. I think one of the first lines in Sun Tzu is, he who would wage war ought to first count the costs. Basically, Sun Tzu always, that's kind of like a meme that runs through everything in the art of war, is saying you must gauge the cost benefit every stage, and you must only engage when you're absolutely sure of a victory.
Here, I think there's a sort of a cross thing going on there, because whilst that applies, that what you've just said regarding the war, it doesn't apply in the realm of motivating people. You have to. So the cost benefit is not a motivator; it's a practical tool. So I think possibly there's a conflation of the two different things there. I'm not quite sure which one, how he actually meant it. You know, you could read that a different way.
Yeah, you could read it as let go of the outcome, like what we say sometimes. I think there could be something that I try to see the positive in what he was saying, and I'm trying to read and decrypt through his Christian gibberish there that he was constantly throwing out. But at the same time, he was following a line that I could understand when he was saying. Well, he was repeatedly throwing away the ego. He was repeatedly saying to let go of the outcome, and he was not setting. I don't know if he meant let God, but what he meant is that you act and then you detach. I don't think it talked about his methods. I think it was talking about his attitude in general.
Yeah, it's really funny because we speak exactly the same words, the same ideas. So it's the same thing as us with a kind of different language. So
That's what Gary was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of language.
Yeah, I think that is a big. I think when you're talking with him, you're probably going to have to spend a little bit of time looking about whether your word is really. Sorry, I mean whether they're really interpreting your word the same way you are. I guess is basically what it is, or if they're just off on some completely different. Because you can do that. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it where people are having this amazing conversation, and if you're standing to one side and listening to them, think, my God, they're completely at odds with each other, and they don't realise it. But they think or the other way around. They're agreeing when actually they're disagreeing, or they're disagreeing when they're agreeing, but they don't think so.
Being in violent agreement. But I think the thing to do is to start off with kind of a memorandum of understanding. So that you see that there's a lot of trouble with anchor points that I see in the. So if you get a kind of polyglot load of ideas and a kind of a patchwork ideology, you'll find that a lot of the pieces contradict each other. And so if it's not exactly a coherent ideology. So, and there are definitely signs of that. For example, you'll see a lot of things where everybody's in absolute agreement that we've got 3 to 4 years. But then it'll be quite acceptable a little further down the conversation to talk about something which everyone knows would take 90 years. So, at least 80 years or 90 years is a tactic. So if you say that the thing is, if your time horizon is before 2030, then you have to stop talking about Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela's time frame is at least 40 years. So all of these disjuncts, so then freedom riders might work, but it's neglecting how much buildup there was to the freedom riders. So is that, it might take 3 months to get to freedom riders type of resistance, but only if the groundswell is there. And I could argue that the groundswell from the freedom riders goes all the way back to emancipation. So I can easily make the case that the freedom riders was 100 years in the brew. But even so, you can say everything from Malcolm X and stuff. It's really at least 15, 20 years at minimum in the brood that was, brew time to get to that. So, and then I can show you a tactic that works in like 2 years, and then you have to go to the far right. And like January the 6th, that was 2 years and 14 million. So it's really, really hard to argue with that. But you see those kind of disconnects. Yeah, it's important to know it.
I think that when you talk to the left, the English left, that's strongly tainted with Christianity, there is an impossibility to talk about military strategy and Sun Tzu and tactics. There is a kind of a blockage, or maybe a lack of knowledge, or maybe some unconscious blockages. But I always find it very difficult when you go on that line to talk with people like that. There's a no, we don't go there, do you know? And I think that's what I felt there.
The reason is because the left has a tradition in humanism, and where humanism got to, particularly in the 20th century, was with this feeling toned thing. So everything is about feeling and lived experience. So everything is judged on, you know, feelings, and then people go, ooh, war, ooh, that makes me feel bad. It's like, well, it's not a good basis to start from, because a lot of people that were about to go over the top in World War I and stuff were exhilarated. They were just like people getting arrested in the street. So, you know, it's like maybe it makes you feel queasy now, but it might make you feel absolutely ecstatic when it comes to actually go and do a charge. So feelings are not a good basis to go, but that's where we've got to, is we've got to, the liberal left now, because, you know, there's no overarching theology. So the ideology is just humanist, and it's saying like it's about me, and then if there's nothing else important, there's no God, there's nothing, then you just say, look, the only thing that matters is, am I suffering? Am I hurting? The only aim in life is a long life, living well, and stuff like that. So everything becomes in terms of this egocentricity, and you ignore everything except for this tiny little alien cortex frame of ego. You forget all the ancestors and their contribution to get you here. You forget all the future people that basically might come on, all the progeny. You forget, it becomes totally anthropocentric, and you forget all the animals and stuff, and their rights become subordinated into this godhead of humanity. And all of this gets swept under with this kind of Ken Wilber, you know, dust to deity kind of narrative of human progress. And so, you know, everything gets subordinated to this man as a Superman kind of thing. And so it's really a very big task on the left. It's to undo a century of misdirected humanism. So everybody has this, the socialists, the communists, the National Socialists, they all have this problem with the left, is that they can't get them to have collective responsibility. And it's got worse and worse. And now they've been so atomized by the consumer market. Now everything is consumer choice, it's voter choice, it's how I feel. And so, you know, it's like, where do you go with that except extinction? So what I think the answer to that is you don't confront it at all. You just say, okay, you mad fuck, you're insane, but I'm not going to say so. I'm going to say, hey, how about a game? And you do through game and play, you engage people, and you say, don't worry about the ideology, you see. And then you get people committed to the organization, the cult, and you get them into the egregore. What you'll find is people will do very little for an ideology. The problem with communists is, you know, communists love to trot Trotsky and have all this intellectual bullshit in Das Kapital that's yay fucking thick and is torturous to read. And then they want people to go and fucking die for that. And it's like, it's really, really difficult to die for something that's so left-brained alien cortex. But if the despair of the communists is everybody will die for their family, they'll die for their kids, they'll die for their mates, they'll die for their church, and then that has communists pulling their hair out. But they never think of the obvious thing. It's just say, you know, start with what they already feel a collective loyalty to, and because of that alone, their ideology, people ditch their ideology at a heartbeat. The liberals think that, you know, everything is to do with education. A liberal education. You'll find the answers within myself, and you'll you know, once you know the answers and discover them in yourself, that the wisdom is there to apply and stuff like that. So then ideology is important, but it's completely fucked up. I know liberal people on the liberal left that say to me, like, I never touch anybody's beliefs. I would never talk about their beliefs or try and persuade them out of their beliefs. That's just sacrilege, because they're liberals. and then your beliefs are sacrosanct. So I said, you know, like, really? Now, this person happens to be queer. So I said, really? So what about Nazis? You're not going to talk them out of their belief? You're not going to alter them? You're going to respect all their beliefs? Like, didn't know what to say. So all these things are complete horseshit. They don't, you know, they don't stand any kind of test of scrutiny. But if you start scrutinizing them, then you get to the, oh, you've made me feel bad now. And then you're stuck, because you get back to the feeling tone is the most important thing, and my lived experiences, and you just fucked up my lived experience. But by the same token, you can take people into a cult, and they will adopt the norms of the cult. It's all done by mirror neurons, and they'll never even notice that they completely changed their ideology. One day they'll wake up and they'll have completely the opposite ideology of when they started, and they'll never even notice where they picked that up. You see, Stephen Hazen said that. He said that one of the things that's so bad about cults is that he was in the Moonies, and he's Jewish. He was an Orthodox, committed Jewish guy, and he got into Reverend Moon's cult, and he said before he knew it, he was a Nazi. He was a, you know, prejudiced, racist, anti-Semite. And he said, like, he didn't know how he got there. And I said, like, yeah. See, everybody wants to know is, how can you change people? All the left wants to know, how can you change people's mind? They always come to the same thing, education. So if you get the kids, give them a liberal education, and they'll think like me. If everybody thinks like a liberal, paradise. It's like, it's a tortured philosophy, but you see how easy it is to get round for the very same reason.
This is exactly what Guy Lane was saying. In
Yeah, Guy figured that out too. Yeah, Guy figured it out too. Yeah. But is anybody struggling with this concept? Have I said something that's like too metaphysical, or something that's just straight out wrong, or?
I think
No, I understand.
when you said that example, Dave Chappelle did a skit where there was a blind black guy, and he joined the KKK. And
I know it. It's,
you know that one too.
Oh, it's my favorite.
So yeah, it's been there's
just tell everybody what it is, because it's hilarious.
Oh sure. So Dave Chappelle, he did a skit on his show, and there was this blind black guy who was raised by a family of KKK. Like they're totally devoted to being in the KKK. So there was a skit where, and he was a leader, if I might not, or he was like a well-known person, but they never saw his face. He was always covered in the KKK garb, and then he always spouts things like
he didn't know he was black, because
and he didn't know
he was an orphan, and everybody didn't want to tell him he's black because they were all racist.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and then they found out. I mean, somehow his that hat fell off, and everyone was shocked that underneath that person, that garb was a black guy. Yeah, it's a good skit. I'll post it. Yeah.
Yeah, we better post that. But you see, what's so good about that is it cuts through ideology to make people laugh at their own ideology. I was just reading this thing about, just before this, about this San people, the San Bushmen, and their spirituality, and they say that basically, the direct link to God is like laughter. So,
Hugh, can I ask, do we want to continue talking about faulty? Because I just wanted to address at some stage those last couple of points about Jeff Hull. Do you want to just not interrupt what we're doing, or how do you want to do this?
No, let's go on.
Yeah, I think what I said there, the second point perhaps, was I mean, that basically we're hoping to get an introduction to Jeff Hull by way of Spencer, and I think one of the things we have to make very clear is if we want Jeff for his expertise and experience in designing ARGs and that kind of thing, because what concerns me as being a wealthy person, that he might have been exposed to a lot of people who just want his financial sponsorship for various worthy causes. And so he might be very reluctant to engage with us unless we make it very clear that the prime thing is not his bank account kind of thing. So if we might have to emphasize that message with Spencer. The second thing I think to try and get across by way of Spencer is just right at the end of the film of Inbright Axiom, where Geordie is talking about a little bit of a retrospect on what happened, and said, you know, well, we can do better next time and make it really work, or things to that effect. And I think we should put forward what we're involved with as put it to Jeff Hull as, okay, we want to do the next chapter of Latitude. Let's this is it, and it's big time. You know, it's got a much broader applicability. You know, it's got a potentially massive real world effect, and so it's basically just those 2 points, which I think are very important to get into Spencer's mind if he's going to talk to Jeff and say something about you know what's going on here. So that was basically all I wanted to do, was just put forward those 2 things.
Yeah, so that's exactly how I saw it. I saw it exactly the same way. And so I have something to offer there, because what I was planning to say was, look, we want to make sure that Jeff Hull knows that we can't spend any more of his money. But I have the key to it, to making it self-funding. So basically, I feel very strongly that I have the missing piece for that they missed, and so, you know, they wanted to make it fun and give people experiences, and at the very minimum, and then, but they ran into the problem that's, you know, the freemium problem is that they couldn't get from everybody's been trained now since the birth of the internet and all the scramble for the internet, trained everybody that everything's free. In other words, they commoditize you with advertising and stuff on the back end. But that advertising model and freemium model means that people have got to the point where they expect to be entertained, and they expect the world for free. And so, again, my way of doing it is, if you have an in-game currency, you wean people off that, because there's another meme that they're quite okay with, and that's from the gaming industry, and that's they're quite okay with tokens. So they're quite okay with points and winning tokens and badging and stuff like that. So it works, because if you use an in-game currency and, you know, badging and those kind of things, it's harmless and in-game. And people then don't notice that, you know, to get the currency, they might have to buy some merch, they might have to basically give gold and silver coins, they might have to go auction them. They'll find that if they don't get the token, the Chuck E. Cheese currency, they won't get very far. So they'll find themselves excluded, they'll find themselves, you know, so it becomes very easy to get the money out of them painlessly through the game, because it's a token currency and not really taken too seriously.
Yeah, well, and just at that point there, I'm reminded of the polar opposite approach which Roger adopted in that Christian video, where he just, you know, how many people are right now, and I'm not even giving you a second to think about it, are going to give us $1,000 or get arrested, you know? And
that hard sell is the timeshare model, and it's not a good one. Because you see, you'll get a reputation. You see, you don't, if the movement gets a reputation as a time sell thing, just look how bad that suspicion is that it's all a Ponzi scheme. You see, everybody is if you know, a basic part of an ARG is the uncertainty. But if there's mystery and uncertainty, the very first thing people are keyed up for is, are you taking me for a ride? And it's taking you for a ride sexually or financially. So then they quickly, you know, if you give them the hard sell or the timeshare kind of sales technique, you know, like a used car salesman, they'll quickly tell you, yeah, these guys are just, it's just money. And you'll get an article in no time at all from somebody saying, you know, follow the money. Look, you know, these guys are such hypocrites. You know, like Faulty got 10 grand out of the movement that he, you know, spent on a lavish lifestyle for the entire year. You know, you'll get all of that stuff. And it's like the fact that, you know, it was, you see Jeff Hull there was saying that those guys, they were getting free fucking drinks. They got an evening's entertainment. And they didn't want to pay a fucking dime. They had to pay $35 to join the organization. It's like Jeff Hull was saying, that's not enough for lunch in San Francisco. But these guys are getting free food, drinks. They have this, it's like incredible how mealy-mouthed people are, how stingy they are.
Yeah, but in a way, Hull kind of fed into that because he kept it going for so long before arriving at the point where he finally asked for a contribution. And I mean, he really habituated them to it as well. So, I mean, you know, he's complicit in a way.
Yeah, they learned their lesson. I hope that they champing at the bit for another go. But you know, they said at the end of that, you know, they were quite precinct in that. They said other people will take the lead from this and go. But I mean, I really want to say, like, come on, dudes, we've got the missing piece of your puzzle. Let's do it again. Because I'm sure we can get it right this time. I'm sure because, you see, we've got the rest of the team that they didn't have. The problem is, if you look at Meowwolf and those kind of guys, they're primarily artists, and then you get one hothead, say, who has a business mind. And what tends to happen there is the business-minded guy takes them all for a ride. And they all get very bitter. And so, you know, it's like Andy Warhol did it, Richard Branson did it, all of these guys do it. The art world has these kind of entrepreneurial parasites that say, oh, these guys are children. They don't realize the value of the stuff they're putting out. And they go from being a reasonable artist to being the worst capitalist, rapacious capitalist that you can get. So, but here in our case, we have the knowledge of, you know, how capitalism works, and, you know, we're mature enough not to basically abuse it. So I think it's golden. We could.
Has he disappeared?
We might have some bandwidth problems.
Yeah,
that was the overall goal. So again, their goal was feelings and experiences, and it's like saying, like, no, you've got to think of something much bigger. Saving humanity. That's about the right size. People will die for that.
When are we meeting Spencer again? Or are you going to talk unrecorded with him? Because you mentioned that in an email. What is the story? So what are we? Because I'm getting mixed up. Geordie, Spencer, what's going on?
Spencer, we're going to talk to
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. Geordie the week after, actually.
Okay. And is it going to be recorded or not?
For Spencer, I thought we agreed no, right?
Partially, maybe?
Well, I mean, well, let's start off unrecorded. And if it works pretty well, then we might get to the stage where we say, can we do one for the camera?
I think Gary's points are extremely good to get across, because he's the only link. He's the only link we have, apparently, to this man, to Jeff Hull, because we have no.
We could get one through Geordie, but I hope that they're still tight, or they could reconstitute the band. So I think that what happened is it split up after that, and I think that there's a lot more behind what these guys are doing, and at some stage we've got to get privy to it. But there are a lot more layers to that onion. And you see, there's the one thing that stood out for me was in Bright Action, that drunk guy comes up on the stage, and I watched Jeff Hall very closely at what he did, and it was really interesting because he handled it quite well. But one of the things stood out to me was he said, look, it's a secret society. You'll figure it out as you go along. And that was a hell of a thing to say right there on the stage in that tunnel, I think. But what I got from that is they really are a secret society. They really are. There's a lot going on underneath there. So the backstory behind that has got to be 100 times more interesting than what they're saying. But I think it's probably our trip. I think, from the dog whistles and stuff that I get out of all their work is just saying like, well, I'm on the same trip. So I would like to get on the thing to say like, we have the same aims, you can't spill the beans and stuff, but they're not spilling the beans totally. But that, I have so much respect for that group and their talents. But yeah, so one thing I feel like I have to get across to Faulty is I'm not, again, this is what freaked me out a little bit about the Christian thing, is that it's, if you actually appeal to some ideology like Christianity, it's immediately a turnoff to a large portion of the population. So it's not like we don't, we want a big tent and we want to try to build numbers building and stuff like the movement does now. But you don't want opposition. You don't want an entrenched opposition against you. And you will. If you come across with a Christian flavor, you've lost the Muslim. Straight out, the Muslims and the Jews are like, they're not on board. They don't want to hear anymore. So any ideology like that is easily got around by doing what they did in Bright Action. Is you make up all the trappings. You make up a sacrament, and you make it, but you can have a kind of a creed like the Desiderata Extinctionati, but it's kind of like anybody could go with that. I don't think there's anything in the Desiderata Extinctionati that wouldn't piss off or
You're having problems with Hugh. You're going off on and off.
Your connection.
Your connection is very bad now. You're going on and off and freezing.
Yeah, you're coming in and out.
You're gone now.
Might be switching.
Okay.
You were out for a while. Well, just to comment, I do agree that the religion part is a big turnoff, even in the United States, to the left, to liberal progressives. That's also, I would think, a turnoff in a way.
Yeah, it is. It is indeed.
And going back to the Extinctionati, the Desiderata, one of the main things that we put down is that one should not be labeled or reject labeling yourself. And so it was kind of interesting to when Hugh said about how faulty is good. You know, like somebody who would be doing kind of like an inside joke that you take on these different personas with different audiences. I think that's perfect.
I thought he was taking another persona there. I thought I honestly didn't think that suddenly he'd you know I thought he was playing something. I really did think that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen it.
yeah, it did look like that. I was going to say that I think there's going to be immense value when Hugh visits him to have a couple of meetings with
Should,
just. Sorry, you're back.
can
Hello.
you hear
Uh-oh.
me?
Not very well here.
It's not too good.
No visual, no sound.
I think.
But I guess Hugh's point was that this early on to be associated with religion might be risky.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, now that we talked about it, because I thought with U.S. being Christian or heavily Christian, he was just playing a role, and that he was practicing his skills as a cult leader. But yeah, it could go
Yeah,
either way.
this is what yeah, I was just trying to get to that point. I think
I hope I'm back. Can you hear me?
yeah, you're back. Yeah, it's good to
Yeah,
have you
no.
back. Hugh, I was just going to make the point that in order to sort out some of this
Can you hear me
confusion,
now?
yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah, we can hear you now.
You're sounding okay now.
Nothing I could really do.
Oh, it might be. There might be a lag again.
Mm.
I guess. Did you want to finish your point, Gary?
Yeah, what I was going to say was I think there's going to be a lot of value in Hugh and Faulty having a few conversations just with the two of them privately when this trip goes ahead, to just for two reasons. I mean, to really enable them both to talk more frankly. Because you've got to. I'm just imagining in Faulty's position, he's a lot of momentum has been invested in the kind of direction of XR, and if he's got people like that around him when they're having discussions, there could be a lot of resistance among them. And it's one of the battles that I think Faulty's going to have to face is sort of undoing some of the unhelpful momentum that he's got in a certain direction. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to sort of find out what he really thinks rather than what he has to say when his own people are around him. I guess that's the basic thing I'm saying,
Am I on?
Yeah,
Can you
you're
hear
on
me?
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're back.
you're on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah. So I was just finishing the point that the to get round the Christianity stuff and all the religious identity is that I think that Jeff Hull and those guys nailed it. You just make a completely false religion without any dogma except it develops, as part of the egregore. But then you have all the trappings. You have a liturgy. You can have everything that you have in a religion, but no God or any other thing. It's just basically you just leave a blank there that anybody fills in.
In a way, Guy Lane was saying that.
I think the AA
Okay.
does that but they just say, oh, you just have all the accoutrements of. Well, so can you hear me still?
The best
Yeah,
quality.
you're okay.
Sometimes you cut off, but we can hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what was the next thing on the?
I think I've got to the bottom of the list I proposed. I don't know if anybody else wants to suggest something.
What time is Spencer on Tuesday?
You better say it offline because
Okay.
it's private. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, we're so deep into the video now that only people that really should want to be interested should. So maybe we can say it, I think.
Oh, we can. That would be. I just want to make sure. I think same time as last time, for about an hour. Yeah, so that was 16:30 UTC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that'd be cool. So, well, are there any other questions?
No, I don't know. Do you want to end there? Because possibly we'd only be bringing up a whole new subject. Do you want to just go back for a minute and do you want to go back and revisit Guy Lane? Is there any point in trying to deal with that guy, or just let him go his own way?
I think we should talk to him.
Yeah, I think he seems to be all by himself, attempting to duplicate what we're basically already going to do. And you know, when you look at on his own, and when you look at his videos there from 2 months ago, that one that you posted, 36 views. In other words, you know, basically nobody even knows he's on the planet. You know, he's already going to take a big leap up in the world, being part of this rather than just staying out there where he's by himself.
Yeah, you see, the great thing about an ARG is it's, you know, I keep on saying is anybody can do freaking anything. So you could still do Vita and stuff under the ARG. You just fold it in. You see, that's the whole pitch to like Spencer and Jeff Hull is you, if they don't mind, you know, using the intellectual property, you take everything they've done. That's all the reference to the Institute and in Bright Action. It just becomes part of the weave. And you can do a lot of historical revisionism. You know, Faulty didn't blink when I said, you know, you just claim that this was always an, you know, front operation for the Extinctionati. But you see, yeah, I think that they need, if those guys are on board, I think they should design how that unfolds. You know, basically, just how that actually weaves in. But it seems to me a rather fascinating story if nobody can make head or tail of it. Basically it's a full-time job for one person to make head or tail of how this came together. That's wonderful. If Jeff Lane has Beta and stuff, you know, it's like a red herring. You basically send them down that trail of figuring all that out, and then they would come around to the Doomosphere and then say like, you know, there are tendrils everywhere. You know, it's like conspiracy theorist heaven. You know.
Well, yeah, basically what you're describing is QAnon. You know, that's what.
Yeah, that's why I like it so much. That's why I like it so much. Because if you know, I mean, if this works, at some stage there's going to be kind of a journalistic attention, and then I just laughing my head off to think of like some journalist who's trying to do like a hit job on this, just cannot make head or tail of it, but they know it's big. See, all journalists want to be like who's the all the president's men guy? You know, the guys in Watergate. Who are those two guys? I can't remember what their names are. But anyway, the two journalists. I think all journalists want to be those two guys, and so they want to uncover a big conspiracy. And they don't realize what a freaking quagmire they've got themselves into. I mean, just playing through the shit that I've done will take you a lifetime.
I discovered that on Reddit there's a sub that's called "Are QAnon Casualties," and it's a sub for people who are recovering from QAnon. And I tell you, if you want to distract yourself and have a little laugh, just look at that. It's "Are QAnon."
No, but can't you recruit from there? Get
But
guys
that's
to
what I
come
was
from
thinking, you know. But I'm just discovered it yesterday, so I I'll have a look at it again tomorrow and see. But I just want to get the gist of who's going in there.
No,
like,
but point them at the videos that I did about, you know, those ones against Stephen Hazen and that other guy. I can't remember what his name is now.
Okay.
But yeah, they're like, I've done one kind of takedown video on Stephen Hazen and that crowd, and how they were trying to deprogram QAnon. So that should be endlessly entertaining for people that have been in QAnon.
Because actually I haven't checked today, but I think that they have they have 180,000 members.
Yeah. So I've been talking to the great unplugged guy. You know, the
Prometheus.
Prometheus. And so he's kind of doing QAnon all over again and stuff. But I tried to explain what we're doing, and I said, well, just imagine QAnon. And he said, yeah, but how many people did QAnon get? And I said, well, some estimates run to 40 million. So, you know, so if you want to play the numbers game, you're going to be hard pressed to get to numbers like that in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. I'll look for that video that you mentioned. I'm trying to remember, which is so many of them. I'm trying to remember, but I'll find it. Yeah, and
this how to start a cult.
It's very, very eclectic. You see, there's all sorts of things on it, but so I have to look through it and see a little bit what are the posts that might be good to target.
Wait,
I remember
the takedown one.
I could find that one and put it up there on XRMed. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
it's that really long one where. Yeah, it's that really long one where Hugh is critiquing their critique of QAnon, right? And then pointing out that our giant culture is a giant snuff cult, which is true. So I know that video. I'll find it and I'll put it on XRMed for anyone who wants to use it.
Yeah, I would like to interview those guys and stuff, because you see, I think there's a gold mine there, actually. You see, especially if you say that it's a cult to deprogram people from being in a cult, and saying, you know, and if you encourage them to say, look, you've got out of QAnon and you've just gone back into the mainstream cult. You haven't got out of cults.
I think the tone is a bit like what you saw in the 80s when you started to hear people emerging from cults. Some of them are saying, I thought I was alone. Or another one is saying, I'm not going to enable Q anymore. Or lots of things like losing respect for the people who raised you. Thanks, Q. And so it looks like a detox kind of thing, you know. One saying, I no longer have parents. It's just so yeah, it's interesting. 180,000 members. You know,
Hugh,
I think it's a great recruiting ground.
If I can just ask you, I've got a half-baked idea to try and ring up Guy Lane and just talk to him. I mean, are you happy if I'm just quite frank about what we're doing, if I'm talking to him, or how would you suggest approaching something?
Yeah, tell him the whole spiel. Let him read the document. It would be nice if you could figure out how
The document you sent to Lier and the document you sent to the Deep Green, is that the one you're referring to?
No, the one to Faulty.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Document to Faulty, of course. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good idea. Okay.
But yeah, it would be great if you could crack the problem of speaking, a language that will translate this into.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. All right. Let's see what can be done.
Bridge the language barrier.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, it's just a matter of as long as he can see that he's basically reproducing what we're already, it's be better to join forces than to just remain separate.
Yeah, no, to make sure he realizes that an ARC gives him the latitude to do stuff, and Vita, he can still save all the stuff he's got. It still works.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Anything else, or should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I can't think of anything, but yeah, I just put that video that Hugh did on XRMed just right now.
Yeah. Oh, great. So, hey, I had one more thing. The music. I think that the music is so damned important, and we should start thinking about it. But did everybody see that thing that I posted on? I just started putting a toe in the water, but really, the stuff that we're doing is the music itself. The whole project could hang on one song. If you just got one instrumental piece that became the signature of it, that piece alone, if it basically knocked the ball out of the park, could be the whole thing. It could hang on a piece of music that it could be like a fringe thing with 100 people to being 100 million people, and that's the power of some kind of instrumental piece like that.
I have contacted musicians. One of them got back to me, and she is too busy, but she was very interested. But she's got some other things, and she can't. But I'm staying on the trail. So I've got some people in Ireland. There's a lot of musicians, and I know a lot. So I'm kind of exploring. I'll let you know.
Yeah, but do you agree with me about the thing about like tubular bells? Because tubular bells struck me as the kind of thing is you need some kind of trance kind of thing. So that basically people that are obsessive about it, and it must have this kind of build. But I mean, the only way I can describe what I'm thinking is it must be the kind of thing that a frustrated person tapping away at a keyboard in a cubicle can listen to obsessively all day. And at the end of the day, they just blow up and go and punch their boss in the face and quit their job. It's that kind of thing. So, yeah, I have a clear vision in my mind, or what it would be, but it's just finding somebody that could, an outfit that can deliver it.
Is there an approach that you'd prefer, like classical instruments, electronic? I'm trying to see what would be a good fit.
Anything. You see, the danger is that it winds up being my idiosyncratic music preference, which would be a complete fail. But you see, what I would make, the key is that it must resonate with people, and you'd only know. You see, it when you see it. When you see, and it's not your reaction to it; it's other people's. So, for example, like Richard Branson, he went from nothing. He just was a guy with a music store, and he went to multimillionaire status, and he did it right on the back of Mike Oldfield. And Mike Oldfield was in his studio. He just gave him spare studio time when all the real artists were not really working. So Mike Oldfield was just a guy on his own, sit there obsessively doing this thing. Richard Branson never thought it would amount to a pile of beans. And when he heard Tubular Bells, he wasn't impressed. Then what impressed him was he suddenly saw all these kids sitting on these beanbags in the Virgin Music Store in London. And they were sitting there smoking pot, listening to this like fucking Zen mantra. And he suddenly realized, my God, these guys are hooked on this like a drug. And when he saw that, it electrified him. And then he started promoting it like up the yin yang. And that made his fortune. You would never have heard of Richard Branson. Richard Branson would never have gone into space if it wasn't for Mike Oldfield and Tubular Bells. So it can literally take you to the stars.
It's a very simple piece of music. It's a little bit like that music that is in Third Encounters of the Third Type. You know, those few notes that are just repetitive.
Yeah, Close Encounters.
Yeah,
Close
Close
Encounters.
Encounters. At the same time,
Hugh,
just three more notes with a very only variation, very repetitive and simple, and it's. I think yes, that it's got this trance characteristic to it. If you repeat it a lot, it just gets you into this kind of.
You know what that also reminds me of? I posted a long time ago this song called "Song for Zula," and there's this like keyboard melody it has, and that's like super, super trancey, at least from my experience.
Yeah, but it's very simple. It's something that is not sophisticated. There's very little instruments. There's no vocals, and it's musically just pristine, nearly simple. And yeah, I've talked to musicians about it. I think you're very right there. We need something like that.
Yeah, it would just appear in everything. You know, when you have live meetings, it would be the intro. You know, basically, it would just seep into every damn thing. And whenever anybody heard it, they'd be like, "Fuck, it's that crowd again." And then that would be it. But you know, I think that we should look at traditional music and stuff too, because I think the San people, some of that trance music and stuff around the fire and stuff. So the Deep Forest, they sampled a lot of that. I think the Deep Forest probably hasn't aged very well, but I think it's Deep Forest did a lot of that into New Age music, and I thought that worked, but I'm not sure if it would work with the younger crowd now.
Hugh, do you have something in mind that's more? I'm thinking, you know, the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey. You know that very.
Yes, but you see the problem with 2001 is a little bit corny. It's great for a movie that you watch once and becomes a cult movie, but you see if you can't listen it to too many times without getting nauseous.
Yeah, I've got a piece in mind. I just can't think of the name of the composer, and it's got a lot of brass. It's very very much in the kind of intonation of that 2001 music. It's got a really attractive little theme.
Yeah,
it's probably not very long. You know, so I don't know how you go about looping it, whether it would survive it. I don't know. I'll put it up. I just got to remember the guy's name, and find it for you.
But yeah, you have to be careful. It's not white people music, right? So it's got to be transcultural. And the easiest.
Yeah. It's he was probably East European.
The thing about tribal themes and stuff is then that appeals to everybody.
Tribal. Oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah.
Like I mean, San people. You know what I'm talking about? Like the bull dance and stuff, and it's haunting shit. I think
yeah. When you were talking about Deep Forest, I think I heard there's this one song by this like pop star. He had like the Son Bushman in there, but honestly, the Son Bushman are the best part. I kind of want to like cut that song up to where it's just the Son Bushman chorus.
Yeah. That kind of thing. I mean, it's not for nothing. Those guys only spent about 40,000 years doing that shit, right? So,
there is something that comes to mind in the it's called Ketjak. It's Indonesian, somewhere around there, I think. And it's a traditional chant to the Monkey King, I think. And it's done by a large group of men. And it was in the film Baraka, I think. And it's
I've seen it,
absolutely
and they move like the monkey, like
yes, they move. That's the one, and it's
they move
absolutely
the height of the
it's
monkey
just
against the gods, and yeah.
that's right, and it's absolutely mesmerizing and magnetizing. It sounds fantastic, and it's a sort of thing you literally could have on the whole day. And it's powerful. It's just got this power to it. It's just you can't get away from it. So I'll try and post that as well.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I think it would help if we just got together this sound theme, just basically things like it, and then we can find somebody that might actually do an arrangement for us.
Yeah.
But you know, even if we had paid to have it arranged, if we got hold of some money, that would be. It's so important to the thing that if everybody agreed on it, it would. If it's magical enough, it would even pay to have somebody arrange. But you see, the thing is that on a project like this, I think people would just do it for love, you know.
Yeah, it's true. All right, are we really going to end now, or what?
Yeah. So okay, let's end it. So just let's.
I thought it was just an idle threat.
Let's just fall still and let go. Leave everything in the hands of the Sun Bushman. And breathe out, relax. Come to your senses. Give up the fruits of this. Give up any attachments or aversions. Just let everything that went down tonight, let it pass. Om Paramatmane Namah Iti. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, Hugh. Okay,
Bye.
bye everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Be safe.
You too.
Bye.